Alderman Branch?
Yeah.
Okay, here. Alderman Hack?
Yeah, here. Sorry.
Alderman Nichols?
Here.
Alderman Elo?
Here.
Okay.
It is being conducted by electronic means pursuant to the requirement of Governor Lee's Executive Order 65 and has been noted as required by that order. Section 1 of Governor Lee's Executive Order strongly urges that the city provide an agenda for the meeting in the notice. As suggested by Governor Lee's Executive Order 65, I need a motion to adopt the agenda which has been sent out for the meeting notice, with one addition: a resolution approving the paving contract with Rogers Group, the only bidder, and to suspend any conflicting provisions of the Manchester Municipal Code. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
In discussion? Call roll. Alderman French?
Aye.
Alderman Patton?
Aye.
Alderman Bellamy? Vice Mayor Messick? Alderman Nichols? Alderman Engel?
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the November the 3rd?
I'll make a motion.
So move. Yeah, second.
Any additions or corrections?
Call roll. Alderman French?
Aye.
Alderman Patton?
Aye.
Alderman Bellamy? Vice Mayor Messick? Alderman Nichols? Alderman Engel?
Is there any response?
No, we did not have anything that emailed in.
Okay. Thank you. Then we're getting to the committees and commission reports. Safety.
Nothing to report.
Finance.
Nothing to report. We will not have a meeting in December. Resume in January.
Street department.
We met and went over it's in the package tonight. So.
Water and sewer.
We will not have a meeting in December.
Recreation.
Yeah. Attorney Ewell, I've got a question about the, on the agenda tonight is the authorization for acceptance of a grant for the parks. Assuming that passes, this is not going to matter, but if it does, is there a holdup on repairing the 3 light poles that have electrical problems that caused the accident, which involved the city in the lawsuit? Is there a way we can fix those 3 poles?
Yes, Mr. Alderman Nichols, I think there is. I know that we got a letter about not making any changes till they did some testing on that. I think that has been scheduled. That's been handled by our insurance carrier. So I don't know the exact status, but I do know that they had a meeting down there to inspect that with some experts. So I suspect that all of that is over with and we can fix whatever.
I got an email from the insurance company's attorney is that there has been no move for an actual lawsuit to be filed at this point. That doesn't mean it's solved. You probably know more about this than I do, but they did come down, they did check it, they had their engineers come down from opposing sides, took photos and everything. He just said for right now, he does not want us to make a move to repair them until he gets an answer, I'm assuming in the next couple of weeks. So that's where we're sort of at a status.
That would be what I would predict that we would need from the lawyer representing the person who's hurt, at least some concession to go ahead and fix it. And I would suspect that after they've done their inspection and have reports or whatever, that we could get that, but it may be a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we can fix.
But there are 3 poles in question. Can we fix the other 2 now and then wait for the, discovery on the third one, on the pole in question?
There's one pole right now that caused the problem.
I understand that, but you said there were 3 that were similar. Is that correct?
There's 3 more.
Okay, okay. And you said it was $38,000 to get them fixed, correct?
Yes, if you go by yes.
Okay, if I could just stay on this point right here rather than drifting off of it. Can we get the others repaired in the meantime, unless this ordinance passes tonight to replace them all, which another thing. But I would like to just somebody be moving towards repairing the ones that are not involved in or not a concern in the lawsuit potentially, and go ahead and start repairing the ones that could cause a problem in the future. I just want to make sure somebody's working on that. That's all.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you are, Bonnie. I didn't mean it that way, but just keep that on the thing, because I want to get those others going. I mean, there's no reason to wait on the others. They have no bearing on anything, right?
I wouldn't think if they haven't hurt anybody, I wouldn't think there'd be any reason not to fix them or change them.
Right. So if we can move forward on that, depending on what the outcome of the meeting is tonight. That's all. Thank you.
Tourism.
No report.
Oh, we do have Kevin Sherrill that's going to be the chairman. Planning and zoning.
We'll have a meeting on the 21st.
Information. All right. Get into resolutions and ordinance.
The first 2 resolutions are identical, except that B authorizes acceptance at this point. A just authorizes application for the Department of Environment, Local Parks and Recreation grant. It doesn't mean we have to take it if we're awarded it. And resolution B is identical, except it adds the words for acceptance and authorizes the city to accept that and essentially commits the fund. With the resolution to authorize an application for a Tennessee Department of Environment, Conservation, Local Parks and Recreation Fund grant amount of $1 million, which requires a 50% match from the city of Manchester in the amount of $500,000 for field light renovations at Fred Dedman and Dave King parks.
I'll make a motion.
Or a second. I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
Yeah. So I brought this motion forward out of Recreation Department, and during that meeting, it was unanimous in the rec department to go ahead with it. And I made the comment that I didn't think the timing was really perfect because of question marks on the budget and whatnot with the pandemic and that sort of thing. And but I thought it was really good to bring it up before the board and mayor and alderman for everybody to have, a decision on this, and thank Bonnie for bringing it forward. I'm going to vote against it. And I think it's just, the timing is just really unfortunate. I'm 100% for the effort and for the idea of it, but I think the timing is just really unfortunate.
If you all have any specific questions, I have Jason Waller here. He's the maintenance superintendent and works on all that, and he's electrical because he can answer more questions than I can. And I also have Jeff Hauk here, who is the athletic director. He's the one that works with all the tournaments and can tell you about the revenue that the tournaments bring in. If you have those questions, they're here to answer them.
Yeah, I'd like to start there. I think the safety element of this is obvious. If we don't move forward with this grant, we're going to spend several $1,000s to replace poles that have to be replaced for the safety issue either way. And Alderman Nichols, I'll support a motion on that if this motion doesn't pass. But about 3 years ago, Jeff Houck and I sat down and kind of started a list of facility needs that we have. And I'm obviously, and again, the timing of this is terrible, but hopefully over the next 4 years, we'll be able to vote on adding facilities. But before we add facilities, I feel like we need to get our facilities that we currently have back in line. And you know, they do a really good job taking care of the fields and all of the things that you can do. But there's age to several elements of our facilities, and they need to be upgraded. So actually 3 years ago, lighting was something that we had on that short list of things that needed to be repaired or replaced at the parks. And back then, you know, I think we were talking about a number between 900,000 and 1.3 million. And so that was kind of, you know, obviously you go into those looking for grants and opportunities to help mitigate that cost. And I also agree with Alderman Nichols. The timing of this is not great, but there are some very positive indicators in the economy right now that I think are going to, that I'm looking at and making decisions based off of. And so I would urge everyone to look at this. I know it was brought as a safety issue, and that part of it, I don't think anyone is challenging the relevance of that, obviously. But the economic issue is a completely different one. And the argument can be made, and I'd like for Jeff to speak after I'm done, but the argument can be made that the economic impact of the different tournaments that have been brought in have already paid for these lights and will continue to pay for these lights. And so, and I also think we can be innovative. I think there's some dollars out there. You know, last year we asked $50,000 from tourism for a reel mower. I think for next year, a $50,000 commitment to this wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities. The fact that there's a 3-year opportunity to pay this back, let's think about that when we're, you know, and I'm not saying that looking at the timing of this is narrowly focused, because it's not, but we do have 3 years to pay for this. So projecting 3 years out, I think if we're looking at the COVID situation, you know, we hope to God that that's not going to be a problem in 3 years. But we also have we can be very innovative with the funding mechanism of this, because we have 3 years to look at this. So when we go into next year's budget, like I said, we could look at tourism for $50,000 next year. We could look at them for $50,000 the year after. I mean, I'm not putting that on the table, but at the same time, I think we have the ability to look at the funding mechanisms later. This isn't something that we have to look at right now. And that's not kicking the can down the road. It's just allowing for innovation. And I think this is an opportunity to get this paid for 50%. If we're going to be competitive, we're going to continue to seek tournaments. And the fact that Jeff Houck works for us and that we have an athletic director and we invest in that position, I think indicates that we want to. And Manchester's taken a lot of steps forward in the last 6-8 years in the tournament business, and we're going to continue to make those steps forward. And that's a huge economic impact for our community. And, you know, the rec department is part of Play Tennessee now, and I'm sure Jeff can speak to that. But that's all I want everybody to consider, that look at this from an economics angle, and this makes a lot of sense. In fact, it makes more sense from an economics angle than anything else. And I think we got to reinvest into the things that are making our city money. We can't continue to invest in the things that are not producing a return and ignore the things that are. And this is one of those situations where this particular opportunity is going to make our city money if we continue to invest into it the right way. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ryan.
Can't see you think the front of the everything. Yeah, just right behind the motion.
Okay. Ryan gave me some information a few years ago. The Play TN Economic Impact Worksheet. I think the guy's name was Chad Culver with the state. And I put in numbers based on the tournaments that we get. And the numbers are quite overwhelming to me. A lot of the stuff, tax revenue and things, there's a little over my head. But as of right now, well, part of my job is to build relationships with state directors and try to get tournaments in the city. I've got a good relationship with a local guy named Steve Leonard. He's part of Top Gun Baseball, and he's going to try to be getting into the fast pitch part of ball as well. But he's basically committed, 17 tournaments starting in March through the end of October. Almost all of those are 2-day tournaments, baseball tournaments. A couple of them are 1 days. But we're talking on this economic impact worksheet, the direct spending, total spending through these tournaments is $4 million. Tax revenues, almost $700,000. Ryan, I'm sure you can speak more intelligently on some of what those numbers mean. But looking at these numbers, it blows me away. And that's just baseball tournaments. I'm still developing relationships with fast pitch and slow pitch, trying to get basically, if we had the manpower and the ability to do it, I really think if we improve our facilities, lighting, fencing, all of it, we could hold a tournament here almost every single weekend if we wanted to. And it's a perfect location. That's all I hear from when people come in and we try to find out, who's coming from out of town and what teams are in town. A lot of them are from out of town, and they love coming here because it's easy. It's right off the interstate. We have hotels. We have nice restaurants. It's just real convenient for Nashville and Chattanooga and now Murfreesboro because they're tired of playing in Murfreesboro. They want to come here.
The only thing I'll add to that from Jeff is Play Tennessee is an organization that is supported by the state of Tennessee and the state of Tennessee Tourist Department. And it was actually created to help elected officials make decisions based off of real numbers and real impact. And I know those numbers they sound staggering in some cases. And that's why even on Tourism Commission, when we looked at how we were recruiting those tournaments, we looked at things like smart scheduling and making sure that teams are staying here as long as possible, that they're playing as much as possible, that they even have enough gap between game 1 and game 2 to go eat or go shop. So all of those, there's a very direct and purposeful approach to this, and it's intentional to drive revenue into the city, and that's revenue that's going into local businesses, that's going into your J&G pizzas, your Jiffy Burgers, all of your local restaurants. So I just want, again, Jeff's got those numbers. I'd like for everybody to look that stuff over. I'd like for everybody to communicate with Play Tennessee if you'd like, because that is the data that the state has put out. And there's no reason to suspect that there's any kind of changes for us because where Jeff spoke to this, our location is driving, particularly in travel sports. We're getting teams from Huntsville. We're getting teams from Nashville, Murfreesboro, Chattanooga. All those teams are coming here because it's an opportunity to play other big city teams in a centralized location. So, again, I think if you look at the numbers, it makes it an easier decision. But that, again.
How did you come up with that $700,000?
Good question. That was my question.
What was the question? I didn't hear it.
It's based on this economic impact worksheet. I have copies of this for everybody that wants to get it. But it's based on, and this is, I guess, primary events for 2016. This isn't even updated based on it being 4 years later. But direct spending is derived from what's a tourism worth, economic impact of a tourist to Tennessee. Dr. William Fox, Director, Center for Business and Economic Research, University of Tennessee, based on $184 in 2011 and adjusted for inflation and tax revenue. It's derived from those numbers they came up with. Ryan, you can probably speak more on that. I don't know.
I think that a family will spend $184 on average per day for a tournament.
It's saying if I have 30 teams come to a 2-day tournament, and let's say there's 12 kids per team, and they put in numbers that says if those kids are 16 and under, that's 2.2 people per kid that's coming to the city because you've got parents, aunts, uncles, however that number comes up. But that's a number that they've come up with through research. And then those total attendees with that, let's say it's a 30-team tournament. We have 375 kids under 16. That's a total attendees of 825 people. 2-day tournament, the direct spending per day is $193.88. Total spending of $319,902. Tax revenue per day is $29.08 for a total of $47,985 in tax revenue. And all those tournaments added up equals that number. So, clarify that very much.
Yeah,
well, you did a great job on it, Jeff, and you do a great job. You're awesome. But
and Bill,
it's not.
Go
ahead. No, go ahead.
No, speak on that. We actually participated in one of those. The Play Tennessee, when they first had released their model, we participated in a tournament, just gathering information. I can tell you what they asked us to gather. They asked us to gather gate for each day, how many people came in, and that allowed them to create the denominators that they have. So in basketball, for example, they had an average on a team. They had an average of 11 players. Each player in basketball had 2.2 people. There was also 3 coaches. That was where the numbers came from.
Nobody going to question that. That sounds fairly logical. I questioned $700,000 in tax revenue. So this was in one sentence that Jeff said, basically committed with existing, that was my parenthetical thing, sorry. Is that somebody basically committed to a somebody game tournament and it was going to generate $700,000 tax revenue. I mean, $700,000 tax revenue.
I think
that pays the whole. Hey, that pays like we could pay for that like out of our pocket if we were getting $700,000 tax revenue. I'm not questioning what that number is. I'm questioning the context to which it was given to me.
Well,
and that number is not coming off of one group of baseball. Plus, the other thing is those guys basically committed. That doesn't sound like contractually committed. And secondly, they did that with the existing lighting. So this whole conversation about how everybody gets that nobody wants to do tournaments in Murfreesboro anymore. And if you don't understand all that, you probably don't need to be in this meeting. Like, we get all those numbers and people are coming. That's not a thing. Hopefully everybody knows that, right? But this, at the very least, is anecdotal. And $700,000 tax revenue, I mean, what? That got nothing to do with these lights. We got to focus on spending $500,000 on these lights when the next thing down on the agenda is a big question mark with a conference center that's $500,000, $1 million, I don't know. This thing's got to be in context with this board, not just this one. I mean, fire engines, all that matters, and they're all $500,000. So, but that $700,000 number kind of flipped me out a little bit. But this thing's in context with everything the city's facing, not with what a baseball tournament drives revenue in a direct, purposeful, intentional approach.
Well, I'll say this. I get a little annoyed by the anecdotal evidence part of it. If you're going to base off of an economic impact formula, what's less anecdotal than that? What proof can you have other than that kind of research? And that, again, that's just kind of
research. It's good research.
And that's why the state invested so much into create.
Does it equal $700,000?
I would disagree. I'm not going to get into specific tournaments. I know that's multiple tournaments, but over 8 basketball tournaments, there was a projected economic impact of well over 800,000.
Economic impact.
Yeah, but
it was said $700,000 tax revenue was the quote.
Yeah. So again, that was just 8 tournaments versus 17, and I'm not gonna question. everything that we ever projected, we did conservatively. Now,
I believe that.
You know, the state of Tennessee, they're the ones that made the decisions to hire a professor to come up with this formula. And I'll be completely honest with you and candid, when Jeff and I first got a hold of the formula, because it was a couple of years of them compiling the formula, you know, we were shocked by the numbers. But if you go and you take a look at increased, and again, this is important. We're not talking about just local teams having one-day tournaments. These are also the USBA, USSA tournaments, the AAU tournaments, the ones that are bringing in teams for 3 and 3 days, 2 and 3 days. You know, those are the ones that made a difference. And those if you look at our tax revenue history, there had been a very steady climb, and it is in conjunction. If you look at particularly the segments, and I'll take basketball, for example, just because of the fact that's what I know more about. If you look at March, April, and May, and you look at that consistently over 7 to 8 years, when we're dumping when we grew this from 2 and 3 tournaments to 4 and 5 tournaments to 8 tournaments, right? You can look at that and see the increase in tax revenue. And again, a third of our tax revenue is new over the last 8 years. And that's not by coincidence. There's nothing that has really moved. If you built a mall, you could say, okay, well, there's that. Or if you built whatever, if we had 3 car dealerships move in here, you could blame it on that. But really, that tax revenue growth has grown within existing structures and a very thriving small business community, which I would argue, again, this supports. I'm not making the direct argument that we need to that this equals the $500,000 commitment. The fact of the matter is, though, if you don't continue to invest in your facilities, one, they're only going to become more expensive, and two, you are going to lose tournaments. Why do you think people are tired of playing in Murfreesboro and particularly Nashville? Nashville has lost so much in basketball because their facilities are trash. It's something that is to be considered. And again, I'm not saying it's completely justified by this. Again, there's the safety element of this to consider as well. I just think that even if the $700,000 number isn't right, or you want to be more conservative than that, the argument can be made that the effort into these tournaments absolutely pays for what our investment is into this.
I've got a real short comment.
I can't hear. I can't hear you, Bob.
Can you hear me now?
Barely, but yeah, a little bit.
All right. Well, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. I can hear you, Alderman Bellamy.
I agree 100% we need to utilize it. We need to fix what we've got as soon as possible. We need to continue as we're continuing. With this 700,000 or whatever tax dollars we're dropping, we're bringing in, that has already been absorbed within our existing budget. So we're not going to have an extra 500,000 to pay for the lights. I'm all for the lights. I agree with Mr. Nichols. It's the wrong time. We just do not have $500,000 to spend on lights at this time. Thank you, Ma'am.
I've got a few things to say with it. Something against it is I've been alderman for over 5 years, and this has never been brought up. And I'm kind of aggravated that it has never been brought up if it was a big safety issue. Why all of a sudden now we need to spend the $500,000 and do this many lights? Why have it in 5 years? We've been doing one field each year, so it is spread out through the years. And Bonnie, maybe you can tell me why that has not been brought to our attention until now all of a sudden, and then it's $500,000.
Well, number one, I'll be honest with you. Until that girl got shot, I never thought that kind of situation could happen. Did not know that the wiring was that bad and that situation could happen. So that was like the big wake up call, lights on about it. The reason to do, when you think about, okay, Babe Ruth Field is 40 years old. The large girls field in Dave King Park is over 30 years old. Never had any wiring changed. It's direct bearing. That wire goes through the ground with no conduit. There's a short that happens. Where is that voltage going? Jason can come up here and speak to the condition. So that was the wake up call and say, okay, we got to do something. We need to look at this. It's not just simply one field that could happen. And then you got to say to these parents, why did we pick this field over the other? And here is an opportunity to get the state to carry 50% of the load of taking care of something we will have to take care of. There's no, you can defer it a year or two or whatever. It's not going to stop. You're going to have to do it. And that funding may or may not be there. So let me let Jason talk about the condition of the light.
Do you not have them inspected once a year?
They go out and inspect the bulbs, but because of COVID.
Well, you know bulbs out, but they're no back. But what about those? They're not inspected?
There's not really a test to do for that, especially on a wooden pole. They're checking balance, they're checking the fuses, they're checking all that stuff for shorts when they're there doing that. But when it comes to direct burial, we're right next to the river. The whole thing, every time we have to dig anything down there, we need a piece of equipment because it's all wrong. And over time, mowers going over it, it's going to vibrate and eventually cut through direct burial wire. And on the girl side, I know it's 480,000 volts. And it will jump and bite you quick. If it cuts that wire and it's in a puddle, somebody's going to get hit. And then, 30, 40 years ago, that was probably okay. Today's time, they would never let it fly. It would be running conduit all the way through it from one end to the other, just because it's the safe way to do it. Bakery Field's 50 years old. Up top, you're not going to just sit there and test them wires. You can test it and see if you got continuity between it, which CNH does all our lives, and they test it every time. And so, the wind can blow hard. These things are on wooden poles. Things can shift. Things can be pinched and cut. So those things, you can test for them once a year. It's what Jared and them do at CNH. They come and test all our stuff. And without it just happening right there, like taking your car to the mechanic today, today it's fine. Tomorrow you hit a bump.
Tell me the condition of the wooden poles.
Our wooden poles are our biggest issue right now. Woodpeckers is our number one problem. I've got one pole that I can take a softball on top of it and drop it down probably 10, 15 foot. And it's going to be every bit of $15,000 to $20,000 just for that pole alone. That doesn't include the wiring that goes on it. Doesn't include anything. And that's for a wooden pole. And a metal pole is going to be, $20,000, $25,000, a little bit extra money. Well worth it in the long-term investment. In my opinion, $500,000 compared to $1 million here in a couple of years. That's y'all's call, y'all's world. But we do all our testing like it's supposed to be done. But like I just said, take your car mechanic today, it's fine. Tomorrow could be a problem. So we can test today and tomorrow could be a problem.
Some of those lights on those oldest fields is, I think probably Mark can tell you, they're right next to the greenway. So if those poles go, they can go down on top of the greenway, the wooden boardwalk, and hopefully no pedestrians, I would think, but you'd have some serious damage.
So the barrier wire, that would be replaced?
Yes, that should be replaced when we do all of it.
So how concerned are you about
direct burial? I'm very concerned.
How many lights have to be?
I think 4 fields out of the 9 have. I know Babe Ruth is one of them. And I know
three
fields out of it.
Babe Ruth, the girls' fast pitch field in Fred Denman, and then the large girls' field in Dave King Park, the one that's by the greenway.
All those fields. Fast pitch field is being used quite a bit here lately, and then Field 8 is one of our fields that gets used constantly. It's where all the co-ed tournaments go. It's where everybody wants to play.
So are you seeing that wire?
No, you're not going to see it. It's 2 foot down on the ground. But it's just a rubber coating, just like the microphone wires. It's a little thicker than that, but we're talking about 40 years over time being wore down. That's fine for your house to do, direct burial, to go to your shed or something like that, But we're talking about 480,000 three-phase electricity. We're talking about commercial electricity. We're not talking about 220 volts to your house. It's a lot of voltage. And it could potentially hurt somebody again.
So what's to keep that conduit?
Well, conduit, they got to schedule any conduit. I don't know the thickness offhand, but that's what they're going to put in the Schedule 80. That's what they put everything. If you do underground burial at your house, instead of doing overhead wiring, you do burial, it's Schedule 85. Duck River trusts it now, but who knows, in 50 years they may not trust it anymore. I don't know what's going to happen in 50 years. I just know right now they're not going to let you direct bury the voltage we have at our vaults.
Hey, Bonnie, I got another quick question.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever talk with anyone else about raising money to help out with this?
I haven't been able to get with city schools. I guess Mr. Vaughn's on there. So I think that they would be willing to put a discussion, especially on the cost of the Babe Ruth field, because
and what does a field cost to light?
Well, it depends on the size. Are you saying, excuse me?
I mean, like the Babe Ruth or the men's softball or whatever. I mean, how much are you roughly guessing per field?
Those, because they're larger fields, have more light poles. And so I think it was 190,000 to 200,000 to do that one.
Okay.
And this would be the LED lights. Like I said, I know you're saying, well, why do we need those? But you're going to save energy costs every single year. Every single year.
That $9,000 per pole to fix that Mr. Nichols was talking about earlier, that's just to replace the wiring. That's not fixtures. That's not conduit. They may put new conduit beneath it, but you're talking about $9,000 per pole just to rewire it. That's not putting a pole in the ground. That's not to put line fixtures up top. That is literally just to put wiring, ballast, and fuses in.
But that's to the poles that created the same problem we're dealing with. Because my understanding from Director Gamble is that those poles that are like that, to fix those so they potentially don't do this, hopefully we get those inspected better than we did the last inspections we've been paying for. But I'm taking that from what Director Gamble told me, that it was $38,000 to correct the poles that were similar to the ones that caused the person to have a problem.
Wiring.
Correct. It's all
right. Yeah. Well, but she said it would correct those similar poles. That's all I'm talking about. I understand it's not fixing the world, but it's fixing that particular problem on those like kind poles.
Correct. And there's still more poles on that field as well that would have to be done.
That are different kind, right? That are different. I know there are more. I know there are hundreds more poles, but
I'm just talking about the Babe Ruth field one. I think there's 6 light poles on that field. 3 of them come back with a bad test when the engineers come out to do their test with this lawsuit that's going on right now. And that's just those 3. That's not to do.
I got you. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the deadline for the application for the grant?
The deadline is Monday. So
okay. So like Gerald said, the first resolution is only to apply for the grant, right?
Yes.
The second resolution is to accept if we are awarded the grant.
You choose either one. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Right. Okay.
The process is that we had to put in a pre-application back in October.
Yeah. Okay.
And signed a letter saying, yes, we were committed to doing this application. So we put that in there. We passed the pre-application. They said, good, now you can put in your application December 8th. If we are fortunate and we get awarded, you still have a contract that you have to vote on to approve to go forward. And that has to be a vote of you all to do that. So you have other opportunities to put the brakes on if you want to, but I'm just saying that's the procedure that'll happen.
Okay.
There will be a contract ready for any consideration, I would say, an earliest 1st of July, because they got to inspect all the applicants, and with COVID, they're not traveling right now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So
all right.
Carry that forward a little bit to the next logical step there, Roxanne.
What'd you say? I can't hear you.
I said carry that forward to the next logical step. Okay? So why don't, well, I guess we'll vote in a minute. But we can vote on being able to apply for it.
Yes.
We can hash all this out between now and July if we need to.
Yes. That's what I was getting at.
So but I've been told that they really want us to take this seriously.
Well, they do. I mean, and it's a lot of work, no offense, to put one in, so I'd like to take it seriously too. But the thing is that they will require you to have a vote, the state will, for the contract. They always, do that. Or the mayor can sign it. You all have to vote on it because our ordinance says anything over a certain amount has to be voted on. So you do have opportunity.
Can you give us an estimate from on how much it would take to fix the underground wiring sometime between now and the time that we actually
on all fields that you're proposing?
The wheels that have the underground wiring that's not in conduit.
Yes.
I'll bet you it's going to be quite good money.
I'm not. Jason works, he's got 10 jobs, and half of them are with electrical contractor kind of stuff. He knows more about that world than I do, so I'm going to let him talk about it.
They gave us quotes to do other just poles, and we're talking in the 10 to 15,000 just to get one pole.
Yeah, but the way I understand it, the big concern right this minute is the wire that's under the ground that's not in conduit.
Right. I've never had a quote for the whole thing. I've only had quotes just for each pole.
So what if we had a quote for the whole thing? Let's just see what it would cost.
I can't give you the exact number. I'll give you what I would think.
I don't want you to now. Yeah. You've got time.
Well, get over the mic. I know what it costs for us to put conduit in the ground at the soccer park. Now it was just conduit, no wire, nothing, just conduit. And it was $38,000 just in conduit.
Let's park around $500 million.
Well, that's just one field. That's 4 poles.
All right, so what I'm saying is I'd like to know how much it would cost to put that wire and a conduit on all the fields that need.
I get those numbers. I was guessing. Yeah. If I was guessing, I'd say it would be $150,000 to $200,000.
Okay. All right. But you can get that. Yeah, I'd like to see that. When we vote on whether or not we're going to.
Well, right now, if I get a contractor out to give me a quote back that fast, I'd love to
be. We got till July.
Okay. So
we got till July.
Well, if you vote.
You're assuming a lot right there.
Yeah, so, yes. So, yeah. You can break that down. Yes, we can break that down. We can break that down before that. So I don't know.
Well, here's some numbers too. If tourism does 50 and 50 in 2 years, that's $100,000. And then we said $38,000 for just the repairs. They're talking about needs to be done ASAP. And then you got, if the school system did $200,000 just for the Babe Ruth field, that's $338,000 out of the $500 that we already got. So we're not going to be out a ton of money if we do go forward with it and school systems agrees to it. And then the repairs, the city's not out a whole lot of money over 3 years to get $1 million grant.
And if all those things were contractually committed tonight before next Monday, that would be an awesome thing.
Yeah, but
it would change everything.
I mean,
I haven't heard a peep out anybody.
Tourism would do that, and I mean, Dr. Vaughn's on.
What?
But do what?
Tourism's going to spend $100,000. Tourism is going to spend $100,000. I can't say that.
That's over 2 years, possibly. I mean,
yeah,
possibly.
Well, let me speak to that. Tourism spent $25,000 on a lawnmower this year. Yeah. Tourism paid for all the conduit that was put in the ground that Jason spoke to the soccer complex.
I get all that, but my point is it's not been voted on by the committee.
You question it. They have a history of supporting.
No, they got an awesome history. I'm not questioning their history, their anything.
Well, I think what Alderman Elam brought up is it's perfect because it is the fact that no one contracts in hypotheticals, right? Like hypothetically, if we go get this grant, would you contract this? You apply for the grant, you look at the grant opportunity, and then you seek the funding mechanisms to support.
And Bill, we do the budget on hypothetical. We don't know exactly what we're going to bring in every year. We do that every year on the budget. So we do that every day. So
exactly. But to the point that Alderman Bellamy brought up, that this money's already been allocated, that's just simply not true. The money, how do we get to $6+ million in reserves? It's by having a surplus through the year annually. That's how we're able to build these reserves, is by these dollars that are coming in from tournaments and other things. But that's how those dollars are there. So yeah, you may budget them away, but the reserves that exist today, in large part, can be think because of these kinds of things. I'm hearing a lot of investments here. We want to pay for poles that are broke right now, and I get that. We fix potholes every day, and we fix potholes on roads that need to be paved, but we never say let's not pave the roads. We want to pay for more thorough inspections. I can imagine that's going to cost quite a bit of money considering how many poles there are. And we haven't even discussed, besides the safety element of this, we haven't discussed this, that Little League baseball and softball is important for local kids. And we need to keep investing into those fields for the next generation of kids that are going to play on those things.
And everybody's in agreement on that point.
We've got a motion and a second on resolution A. Put the application in. And we will have, if we are approved in July, we can change our mind. If we realize we don't have the money, that we're still in COVID, nobody's going to play the fields anyway. So we have a motion for resolution A that we will put the application in. We've got a second on it. Any more discussion?
Hey, Bonnie.
Yes, sir.
If generally speaking, if there are 2 points to the motion to proceed with the application and accept the contract, if a group does the first and then doesn't do the second, does that affect the way we are viewed the next time we go for a grant?
I mean, if you turn away a grant, if they say we award you and you turn it away and say no, we can't do it. I think that it's like the Mayor Howard said, doesn't look good, but I will tell you honestly, working at the state, we wouldn't be the first community that's ever done that. So, and I don't think they have been locked out of getting grants.
Well, you've used that argument in the past that we have to do it. If we don't do it, then we're going to be negative towards us. I've heard you say that.
I agree with you, Bill. We were told that.
Yeah, I agree with both of you that we were told that, but I'll also follow that question. We're in the middle of a pandemic. If we make it to June or July and we decide that in June or July we have no federal money coming down, or we're simply put in a situation because of the pandemic that we can't fund this, I think it's reasonable to understand that would probably be taken into consideration if we turn the funds away.
And remember, we have 17 ball tournaments this person wants right now. I mean, my staff and I are looking at each other and saying, can we even man that many? I mean,
is that based on having new light poles?
No, that's not based
on.
Well,
I don't know what that's got to do with the conversation. We've had a good conversation. But
it's money.
I know we all want this tournament. So, I mean, it's not a thing.
Out the light poles, though.
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton.
Aye.
Alderman Bellamy.
No.
Bassett. Alderman Nichols.
No.
Alderman Elam.
Aye.
Resolution B.
Resolution B is to accept the application, to accept the grant awarded. Any motion on that?
I'll motion that we table this.
I'll second. Did the first motion pass? I could not hear.
Any discussion?
I agree with Alderman Elam. Was the first vote 4-2?
Yeah.
In favor?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I'm one of those yes votes, but I still want to see those figures before we vote for the next to accept the grant. I'm not promising a vote there.
Yes, sir. I agree too.
Okay, I have a motion to table resolution B. Call the roll.
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton.
Aye.
Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Messick. Alderman Nichols.
Oh.
Alderman Engel.
For tabling it.
Next thing I have, Madam Mayor, is a resolution to approve a contract maximum of $239,695 with Prince Utility Inc. Project 161 relocation of utilities on Interstate Drive.
I hear a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Why are we moving the utilities on Interstate Drive?
Why?
So is this something that the widening project's already been approved? It's just our portion of that widening project. We paid the whole $269,000.
We have to pay all of that. Now I don't know how it fits into the rest of the project. This is just what got sent to me. But I think the state's widening interstate. Maybe Jamie or somebody knows more about it. But I think the state's widening Interstate Drive, but we have to relocate our utilities.
You are correct, Gerald. That's correct.
Okay. Come on, Jamie. Go ahead.
So I don't have STP funds. Is this part of the STP funds that are already dedicated to Interstate Drive?
No, this is money it's from the water and sewer funds. Some of the TDOT projects are reimbursable. However, this one is not a reimbursable project. That was one of the first questions that I asked.
That STP is all toward that sidewalk, though, isn't it? Do we have anything with that, Brian, on your project? Any STP money? Do we already?
We've already got current STP funds dedicated to Interstate Drive.
Oh, okay.
Past couple years.
I mean, but going forward.
If I'm correct, no, going forward, it shifts to sidewalks when those are available. Yeah. But Jamie, speak to that if I'm not correct. My understanding is we have STP funds for a couple of years now dedicated to Interstate Drive.
So the funds for the past 5 years or so, which we're going to be getting new funds next year, but those funds were allocated to the Interstate Drive widening project and then also the re-signalization project of all the signals from Doak Road to the Walmart intersection. All those signals are going to be reconnected. But the Interstate Drive widening project, I believe, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I believe the project was right around $800,000, I believe, and it was a 20% match by the city. So this, the utility relocations are not part of the money that the city agreed to put towards the project. So this is extra money that the city's having.
Dang. This is money that's paid out of the water and sewer capital funds.
Yeah, this is money Brian's got figured out. I trust that 100%.
Bridget has it figured out for us.
There you go. Thank you, Bridget.
Sorry about that.
No, I didn't know either. I didn't know.
We're more than happy to take any funds you want to contribute, even if it comes from tourism.
No, they've tapped that. We've tapped it. I will say this, though, moving forward, though, when we spend these STP funds, if there's going to be some consideration of moving utilities, we definitely need to consider that in the first part of the project. Because that stinks coming back, because now our 20% match is kind of blown out of the water. We're almost at a 50% match after you consider this. And whether it be water and sewer money, or be taxpayer money from the city, that's still money generated locally. And so now we're $400,000 into it, or 300,000. My Lynchburg math doesn't come through all the time.
And a lot of the widening projects that they do are reimbursable. So that was one of the first questions I asked to the state, and we got that answered quickly that it was not a reimbursable project. I'm not sure why the state deemed it not reimbursable, but it is not.
Is there a process to apply for that reimbursement? Or, there's no way to appeal that. There's no way we can ask for, I would also like to see the mayor write a letter for reconsideration on that, because this is a connector road between two state highways, and it's also a connector road between two major interstate exits. So if there's ever been a reimbursable project, this would be it. And it's also the only hospital in the entire city. So I'd like to see us explore that a little bit more. Just in general conversation. I'm not gonna make a motion about that, but seems like I can't imagine a criteria that it wouldn't check off.
I think it's because it's probably not on a state highway itself. Because typically, like Highway 41 and Highway 53, when we did those projects, moving those utilities, those were reimbursable projects. And the only thing you would have to pay for as a utility is any improvements that you make. And Scott, I'd say he's on here. He may be able to speak to that some as well.
What you just stated, Brian, is correct. It's not on a state highway, and it's not in the right-of-way of a state highway.
So any connecting roads that a state highway would, I'm going to use the same term, hypothetically create additional traffic on, we have to eat it.
TDOT determines if it's Chapter 88 eligible for federal funding, and because it's not on a state highway, it's deemed not eligible.
And we can't make them take it as a state highway, right? We can't be like, here you go.
Can we rename it the state highway and just hope that they add it to their list?
Scott, you're saying no, right?
No, they're not going to accept that.
All right.
Yeah, they've already determined that it's not eligible, and that so Brian had the choice on the front end to put it under the TDOT, put these utility relocations under the TDOT project scope directly, and which is a more expensive option. So he went to where it's being constructed through the local utility.
Oh, right.
So to save money. And so, yes, definitely he is saving money by bidding this and designing it outside of the TDOT scope project.
Same sort of thing that we're working on with the sidewalks, right? We're kind of doing some same idea there.
Similar, but in his case, if it fell under the TDOT average pricing, then it would have come in about $500,000 compared to $239,000. So yes, he made that choice and saving money.
Whoops. Appreciate you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
We
Good
try
to
to say
see
anything we can.
as always.
Well, where we are tonight, the money, we've got a motion and a second, and whether we can get the money back right now, we've got a motion and a second. Would you call the roll? Alderman French?
Aye.
Alderman Patton?
Aye.
Alderman Bellamy?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Messick? Alderman Nichols? Alderman Elam?
This next item is a resolution repealing Resolution 40, 2020, and authorizing the City of Manchester to enter into an agreement with Coffee County, Tennessee regarding further operation of the Manchester Coffee County Conference Center. This makes the change. The material change this makes is it raises the amount of capital improvements for which we're eligible to be reimbursed partially from $15,000 to $25,000, and clarifies some stuff about the personal property that I think was implicit in the first agreement, but they wanted clarified. But the main financial change this makes what was passed in November is raising the threshold of the capital improvements about which we could get reimbursed. And this is to essentially approve the resolution is sent back by the county with that change for raising that amount from $15,000 to $25,000.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I do got a question on that. Gerald, is this the final vote? Did they pass that with this consideration already considered, or
yes.
So another? Okay, gotcha.
This is actually how it came back from Mr. Husky. So this is the actual text that passed the county commission.
Okay.
This passes, we have a deal.
Alderman French?
Pass.
Alderman Patton?
Aye.
Alderman Bellamy?
No.
Vice Mayor Messick? Alderman Nichols? Alderman Elam?
French.
Alderman French?
What?
We got 4-1 vote.
Alderman French, are you abstaining?
What's the vote count?
4-1.
4-1.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to abstain. Yes.
First ordinance I have, Madam Mayor, second reading ordinance to amend Municipal Code 14.516.6B, little IV, little d, off-site advertising signs presented for second reading.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
In discussion.
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton.
Aye.
Alderman Bellamy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Messett.
Aye.
Alderman Nichols.
No.
Alderman Eagle.
Aye.
First reading ordinance amending City of Manchester budget ordinance for fiscal year 2021, ordinance 1597, presented for first reading.
Move.
Second.
In discussion.
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton.
Aye.
Alderman Bellamy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Messett.
Aye.
Alderman Nichols.
Aye.
Alderman Elam.
Aye.
Mayor, vote on the resolution to approve the Rogers Group.
We did.
I did not. I'm looking at the wrong one here. We do also have a resolution to approve a contract with Rogers Group, the City of Manchester's paving at a total estimated cost of $441,750. This is a unit price contract. We pay so much per ton, so much per gravel, so much per foot. So we only got one bid, as we did the last time we bid it.
I'll make a motion.
Here, second.
Second.
Yeah. Ms. Mayor, I'd like to make the point that the contract actually went down. So for the fact, to mitigate any concerns that it was the only bid that we had, the price actually went down. So that versus last year.
The unit prices did.
Yeah.
The total amount estimated did go down $30-something thousand, I think.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got budgeted in our projected budget. Bridget, is that what we have? Or who, George or whomever?
I have 300,000 in there in paving.
We had 300 in the budget.
Yes.
And so what's the 141,000 about?
We don't have to use that 141,000. We can spend $300,000 at that price and stop.
So, well, we could amend that now and say 300,000, right?
I don't know why it was set at that 441,000.
That's my question. What's the 141,000 for?
I think it's just close to what it's been in the past. They just estimated it that. It's usually 350 to 400 like in the years past. So I'm sure that's you could probably amend it to 300,000 if that's what y'all wanted to do.
Is it time? Can I make an amend it now, or do you do that now, or when do you do that? I forget.
Have definitely gone up. So I'd say get as much pavement in at the lower price because it is going to go up. I'm surprised they did go down on their bid. That's just my comment from us having construction done. Everything's been higher.
It's a tonnage estimate. Maybe George can expand on that. It's a tonnage estimate, and I don't know how, and maybe he doesn't know how they came up with that estimate. That's something we thought in prior years, but you could limit it however you wanted to, whenever you wanted to.
So I guess that's my question. Where did the extra 141,000 come up? Like we had to send them some information to base a price on it. If it came down, and we budgeted 300, you'd think it'd be like 280 or something, right? I mean,
did they bid on last year's
Did they take last year's bid on that, George?
I think that's basically what he did. I'm not really 100% sure. I don't have it here in front of me.
What was our last year's budget for that? What did we spend last year on paving? We budgeted 300, spent 441.
No, it was like 200 or 298,000, something like that, almost 300.
Let me ask this, Gerald. This is sort of an irrelevant argument, right? Because the department is not authorized to spend anything above 300. We're not authorizing them to spend more than what's budgeted, correct? We're just authorizing this anything that goes above 300. So this 141,000 would require a budget amendment.
That's the way I read it. If I was Mr. Gannon, I sure wouldn't spend any more than was in my budget.
Yeah, and I get that. I do. But I just also, when that number's out there, it becomes a number. And so if we need to spend more, overspend, we can also do that as a board of mayor and alderman and do that at that time. I mean, if it's out there, it's going to be out there. And I'm going to sleep before now and then and forget what we even talked about. But if it's 300, then we can say we're going to have to do a budget amendment for 141,000 on top of that.
I'll second Alderman Nichols' motion to cap it at 3,000.
Thank you.
If we budgeted 300,000 and we don't use it, this $141,000 becomes a move. But if for some reason we would have to go over 300,000, we're locking in the lower rate. So all we're doing is locking in the lower rate if we have to go over budget. Doesn't mean we're going to spend it. It's budgeted. This means we've got a guaranteed price if we have to go over budget. I think it'd be crazy to cut it and not because it's not a budgetary item. It's just a price quote.
There's a motion and a second, so I suppose that was in the conversation part. That's a good point to consider before you vote on the amendment.
Correct.
Madam Mayor, I think essentially we're at the motion section of meetings to cap it at 300,000.
Alderman French?
No. Because of Alderman, I'm saying no because of Alderman Bellamy's argument. It's a good argument.
Well, that's cool. I just want to get the amendment in there, so that's awesome. Thank you.
Are we voting on the amendment?
Correct.
Yeah.
300,000. Okay. Yes.
Alderman Bell?
No.
Vice Mayor Bassett?
No.
Alderman Nichols?
Yes.
Alderman Elam?
No.
Oh, man. I thought we were going to get the first mayor vote.
Good discussion. Thank you all for humoring me.
Okay, now the original. Did we have a motion and second on the original?
Yes,
we did.
What?
Okay, it's going to be Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton.
Aye.
Alderman Bellamy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bassett.
Aye.
Alderman Nichols.
No.
Alderman Elam.
Yes.
The next thing is under new business, under the PDA discussion. Our agreement with the county as we sent it over there to start with, and then as it came back and it was just approved, required us to form a PBA to operate the conference center. There is a statutory procedure by which 3 electors have to submit a request to be granted permission to organize a PBA. We have that submitted by Mr. Huddleston Jr., Mr. Boyd, and Mr. Shelton. They have submitted that request, an application for permission under TCA 12-10-104, along with a form certificate of incorporation that would incorporate a public building authority for the city of Manchester with the principal office of 147 Hospitality Boulevard, authorized to operate a conference center and to exercise any other statutory power with 7 directors in perpetual duration. There is in the packet of items that was sent out probably just yesterday. There is a resolution that the state requires this board pass in order to permit these three individuals to submit that incorporation to the Tennessee Secretary of State. If the board passes that resolution and this is submitted and the Secretary of State approves it, we will have a public building authority. There's also been some thought given by Her Honor to appointees to that board because they are to be made by her, subject to confirmation by this board. And I think they have been distributed. The statute requires they be appointed in 3 groups. He selected 3 people for 2-year terms, 2 people for 4-year terms, and 2 people for 6-year terms, making up the 7. I don't know how that slate is, but the first thing to do would be for the board to consider the resolution to authorize these 3 individuals to form the Public Building Authority. If that passes, then the next thing to do would be to discuss about making some appointees as directors of the Public Building Authority by Her Honor, subject to confirmation by this board and contingent upon approval of the certificate of incorporation by the Secretary of State.
I'll make a motion.
A second. Yeah, one real quick question, Attorney Ewell, is this specifically to just the conference center, or does this create a PBA that has the opportunity to oversee any public buildings that the city chooses to put in its purview?
Well, the statute that's about the certificate of incorporation required it to identify something specific about what it was supposed to do.
Okay.
Well, let me just finish a recital. Let's see.
That answers my question.
Purposes organized, and I put all statutory purposes as allowed by TCA 1210-101, and same may be amended. So whatever the legislature sees fit to do, it you could do, or the PBA can do.
Thank you.
Alderman French.
Pass.
Alderman Patton.
Aye.
Alderman Bellamy.
Aye.
Vice Chair Messick.
Aye.
Alderman Nichols.
Aye.
Alderman Elam.
Aye.
Abstain.
You passed.
Abstain.
Abstain.
The resolution then is approved. We'll submit that to the Secretary of State, and then if you want to, we'll have another meeting before the first of the year. If Madam Mayor made her nominations for the various terms, and then we could act on those in a group, individually, however the board chooses.
I make a motion to accept them as a group the way the mayor has presented.
I'll second.
Okay. It's anybody zooming in. 2 years, Tiffany Gilsman, Jay Boyd, David Bradley, 4 years, Ken Holtzman, Jake Shelton, 6 years, Stan Hill, and Zach Lowry. In discussion?
Alderman French.
Pass.
Alderman Patton.
Aye.
What was that?
I said aye. Yes.
Alderman Bellamy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Messick.
Aye.
Alderman Nichols.
Aye.
Alderman Elam.
Aye.
Alderman French.
Abstain.
For the Tourism Commission appointment, we had some good applications, but I am recommending Andrea Bates.
Make a motion.
I'll second it. I'll third it. Is that proxy? Are we done?
Alderman French.
Absolutely aye.
Alderman Patton.
Aye.
Alderman Bellamy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Messick.
Aye.
Alderman Nichols.
Aye.
Alderman Elam.
Aye.
Okay, it's a real appointment for the commissions and committees. Roxanne Patton, Alderman Patton, is taking Alderman French's place as Finance Committee. Alderman Patton is stepping up in Alderman Nichols' place as in the Tourism Committee. And also, Alderman Bellamy is taking Roxanne's place in front of IS division. Sorry.
I don't want to take anything away from Roxanne.
No, you're not taking it away.
Anyway, do I hear a motion to approve these?
I'll make a motion.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second. I do think there needs to be an amendment, though.
And?
I think the vice mayor should always serve on the Adult Entertainment Commission, and quite frankly, Alderman Bell's been there long enough.
Okay.
I'll be honored to serve on the Adult Entertainment Commission.
Okay. Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton.
Aye.
Alderman Bellamy.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Messick.
Aye.
Alderman Nichols.
Aye.
Alderman Edel.
Aye.
Okay, items from the board.
Yeah, I've got one. I reached out to MTAS with a question about the way we compensate directors of different departments and how it's kind of a uniform thing. And I'm going to forward that email to everybody tomorrow, and I appreciate your attention to that. And I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory in there what MTAS thinks. And so I'll just forward that tomorrow. I just got it this afternoon. Too early to talk about it too much, but hopefully we can start a discussion about how we compensate directors.
I have something. The industrial board reached out to me, the Coffee County Industrial Board, about planting a tree in the memory of Mayor Norman. They first talked about putting it at the entrance of the industrial park, the Interstate Industrial Park. And now they're asking about possibly planting a tree along the Greenway. And I talked to Bonnie about it earlier today, and she suggests that it be around where the new playground is behind Riverview, since that's where Lonnie, grew up. So, and I think that's a great idea. So I just wanted to let y'all know that. So. But I'll talk back to the industrial board about it. So I'll let you know.
I'd just like to give my condolences to Alderman Messick's family. He lost his cousin to COVID.
Sorry for your loss.
But in more comments, thank you guys for coming and did your case so well on the ballpark. And I just appreciate everybody and see you guys next year. Merry Christmas.
Great meeting,
Merry
everybody.
Christmas.
Hey, Christmas parade was amazing. I was going to add that, but